Hey guys, this week I'm taking you to my neighbor just down the lane from me. I live out here in the country outside of Bedford in Star Valley. And my neighbor Ron Skinner, he used to be an electrician here in the valley. And in recent years, he's a big hunter. In recent years, he's retired from being an electrician and he started Skinner's Skull Shop and Taxidermy. So this is him. So if you don't like seeing dead animals, you probably want to turn this video off and go do something else. But I thought we'd talk to him about how he started this business and some of the cool mounts he does in here and different things. And so he's went up to change his clothes and he'll be right back down. But I'm going to show you a few of the mounts in his office here. So he's a big hunter. All of these mounts in here are things that he's taken. So there's some caribou from up in Alaska, right there. They have that kind of cool paddle in the front there, and then the antlers go up like an elk or a deer. And there's a couple bears. There's a mule deer, and he shoots big animals usually, and so they score in the Pope and Young and Boone and Crockett and things like that. There's a bighorn sheep. It's pretty cool. Antelope. A blonde black bear. There's a grizzly bear. I'll see if he can tell us that story about him shooting that grizzly bear in Alaska. It's kind of interesting. It's a crazy story. There's a mountain goat up there. Mule deer. There's a white-tailed deer. You guys have those on the eastern side of the state, and we have some here on our edge too. They're coming in from Idaho. There's a big old moose. Look at that. So, and he's a bow hunter primarily. He likes to bow hunt. There he is with the bear. You don't often see a grizzly bear though. Not very many people get a chance to shoot those. So. Anyway, when he gets back down here, we'll show you the shop and have him talk about what he does for taxidermy and stuff. He does. Sometimes people want these imprints done on their skulls, and then they have the antlers or horns attached to them just for a different look. Here's an elk that he's getting ready to mount. Getting finished up. You can see around the eye. Sometimes they have to do a little bit of stitching. Oops, I didn't mean to touch the eyeball. They have to do a little bit of stitching, and then they'll paint or put hair on top and paint around the eye so it looks finished and real, because they put a glass eye in there. Inside of all that, there's no bone inside there. They just take the hide and put it on a styrofoam form. And then on the back, they mount this piece of wood and then a hanger so they can hang it on the wall so it's flat against the wall. But inside of all that is styrofoam and wire to form the ears and different things like that. And then they put a couple pegs on there and put the antlers on so that it's mounted on there. Kind of interesting. But we'll talk to him about how he does that process, how he got this business started. And this is what he does for a job now. Kind of interesting. Just here in a little shop on his property here, just down the lane from me. He has some acreage here, and he harvests hay and has some horses and stuff like that, but this is what he does. So. Okay guys, we're going to talk to Ronell about how he does one of these elk. So, hello Ronell.
Okay, hi. So it begins, of course, whoever kills the elk brings it in, And it'll usually be the head, neck, shoulders, just like this one looks. The first thing is the skin. It's called the cape. That's the hide from behind the front legs forward is what's called the cape. You make a cut right down the middle of the back, and then a Y behind the antlers, because that's the way you have to peel the hide away and then down off the antlers anyway. That all comes off, skin comes off the face. It's then fleshed. That means you have to cut all the flesh and fat from the hide, and then it's salted with about just a layer of salt, probably an inch thick. Lays on the hide for 3 or 4 days. That locks the hair into place, and then it's dried and sent to a tannery. Then the hide is actually tanned into leather, and it comes back just a piece of leather with all the hair still on. And then the antlers are cut off the skull. So the only parts of the animal that you actually use are the hide and the antlers and the top part of the skull. And then it's put on a styrofoam form like this one. This is a dealer. And you see right here there's a cutout. So the top of the antlers, the top of the skull cap with the antlers will actually attach here. You put a little clay, mache, something, and just build the muscle structure back in. And you set glass eyes, and the holes right there are just like half circles. I'm trying to think how to say it. It's just like an orange cut in half, so the flat part
just stick them in there.
Yep, stick them in there. So the rounded part's out, of course.
Are there different eyes that you order for different animals?
They are. Different species have different color of eyes. Deer eyes are quite dark. Elk eyes are a little lighter, and sheep eyes are very light. Just everything varied. But there's taxidermy supply places. There's all kinds of eyes. You can get anything for any animal. So any variation.
Does the hide glue to this or anything?
Yep. Then you model around the eyes with the clay. You build the eyelids, how they're going to look with just potter's clay, basically. One thing I forgot to mention is when you cape the animal and prepare for the tanning, you actually turn the ears inside out, and then you remove the cartilage when it comes back from the tannery. There's just a thin piece of cartilage in between the front skin and the back skin, and that comes out and it's replaced with what we call an ear liner. They could be plastic or several different types of materials. Let me grab one, I'll show you a set.
Okay. Go look at that sheep eye. So here's the sheep eye. You can see how it's a lot lighter. And it's just a fake eye. See a bear eye. Those are the ears.
So here's a pair of eyes. It'll actually even show some of the white, because when an animal turns and looks, there'll be a little bit of white in the front corner or the back corner, depending on which way they're looking.
Yeah.
And they'll just go in there, model with clay. And then the ear liners, you put those back between the front and back pieces of the skin. And they're blue, you put glue on their paste. Then they just go here, you model around the earbuds with clay. And then you pull the hide on. This all receives hide paste. And it's just a water-based paste most taxidermists use. And you just pull all the hide together, stitch up the cut. And of course you have cut slots in the nostrils and in the lip, so the skin actually tucks in inside.
Okay.
Nostrils there.
I noticed stitching on this eyeball. What's that?
This is just really close. You can see that. Sometimes there's the hunter or whoever will make that's a mistake, basically. When they were skinning the animal, they made a cut there that shouldn't have been.
Okay.
And those could happen everywhere. They can get cuts during the tanning. Yeah, you repair all that before you actually put it on.
Okay.
The stitches show now, I'll actually put an epoxy putty over that, and then it gets, paint all the fleshy parts with an airbrush. And when I'm completed, those won't show at all. You won't even know they're there.
Okay.
And that's basically it. Once you put the hide on and stitch it together, it takes about 2 weeks for everything to dry. And sometimes you'll have little places pinned down. Anywhere there's a depression, sometimes you just pin it down with a piece of plastic or a pin stuck through it. Just hold it until the glue sets.
And pull the
Depends
pin
on
out.
how well the cape fits. If they fit perfect, all those things will just stay from the glue will hold it. But probably from beginning to end, I usually spend 8 hours to do a deer.
Oh, really?
That's just the mount, attaching the antlers, preparing the form, stitching it back together, and modeling, and then doing the paint, the finish work. When you get the hides in, it doesn't take too long to skin one, 30 minutes. Fleshing's a little bit bigger job.
Mm-hmm.
That can take 3 hours or 4, depending on.
Is all that part of the 8 hours?
The fleshing, the 8 hours I'm talking about from the time I get the form and the hide's already tanned.
Okay.
So there's an additional 3 or 4 hours in prepping the hide before it goes to the tannery. Depending on the size of the animal you're working with.
So by the time you do all your paint touch-ups
Yeah.
and everything, maybe 15 to 20 hours for an animal?
Yeah.
Or more?
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's say a kid watching this is like, oh, I want to have that kind of job. I want to open up a shop. How do you get into it, I guess?
Well, I had an interest in grade school, and I actually, back then, that was the 1960s, late 60s, there was a correspondence course I signed up for, and I'd get a lesson in the mail, and then I'd do the project. It might be a bird or a squirrel or something, and then I'd take pictures and send them back in to the instructor, and he'd give me suggestions anyway.
How old were you?
I started in 5th grade.
Okay.
And it's just always been a hobby for me because I've always been interested in wildlife and animals and birds and stuff. So that's how I started. Nowadays, you technically could probably learn to do it with YouTube.
Yeah.
There's so much information on the internet. There's starting with the very basics. You could probably learn to do everything by watching YouTube videos.
Okay.
Or there are actual taxidermy schools that you could go learn. What took me years of trial and error to learn in just a few months.
Yeah, if they went to taxidermy school.
Mm-hmm.
What's the hardest thing you had to learn to do? Hardest thing to master with the skills?
Probably learning the true anatomy of animals. I mean, because everything needs to be in proportion and in the right place. It's easy. You could stitch this elk hide together, and the ears might be back here 2 or 3 inches farther than they ought to be. They might be up too high, down too low.
Mm.
On the form, the eyes and the nose are pretty much set, but like the ears, they can be shifted and turned and pulled all around. Another thing is the correct positioning of the antlers. They could be this way on the form, back. They could be up higher than they need to be. They could be down too low. Just all these distances and references, you just need to learn all of the anatomy to make your animals look alive and like they're
Good.
the right proportions.
Yeah.
Look good. Look like what they really look like in life.
Do people ever request, I want my ears doing this or that?
Yeah, I get sometimes people like, this is considered an alert look because the ears are forward, but sometimes they like them back with a more relaxed look. The more alert an animal is, usually the wider open their eyes are, the more round they become. If they're really relaxed, they have a tendency to be more oblong, and the upper lid sags a bit.
Mm.
So you take all that into consideration, and they might say, I want it to look calm or alert, and so
Something different.
yeah.
where do you order all your materials and supplies?
There's several taxidermy supply catalogs. You get on the internet and type in taxidermy supply, and there's a dozen of them. So, yeah, the forms come different shapes, sizes, heads up, heads down, left turn, right turn, all kinds of variations, and they come in all different sizes. So you have to, once you get your cape back from the tannery, you take some measurements, and then you can order the proper form from the measurements.
Okay. Okay. So sometimes people don't want the full fur mount, but they want something like over there.
Yep, this is called the European mount. It's basically the skull and the horns are antlers.
Just the bone and antler.
Yeah, this is the animal's actual skull and horn. This is a pronghorn antelope, and I do lots of these. They're cheaper and they don't take up as much space, but it's still a nice way to display your horns and antlers.
So there's two ways, right, to get the skull all cleaned up?
Yeah, there's more than two, but two of the
ways.
main ones are you can boil them. You get your head and you cut off everything you can get off with a knife. You remove the eyeballs, you remove the brains through that hole right there where the neck attaches to the skull. I just use a little wire with a loop bend in the end of it and reach in there and like
pull it
a
out,
spoon and drag it out of there. That all has to be taken off. So a lot of guys boil them. You just boil them for several hours and the meat and tissue all starts to come off, and you have to scrape and brush and cut and clean. And the easy way is to use beetles, which is what I use. They do all that. It's the same preparation. You skin them and take out the eyeballs and brains and cut off what meat you can get off, and then the beetles finish them up. And then after that, they're just degreased and whitened.
Okay, so the beetles you just dip them down in there and they just eat everything that's flesh.
I'll show you a mountain lion skull I have right over here that I just got prepared to go to the beetles today.
Okay. So this is where he fleshes things out.
Yeah, I just have a little table here.
That's a
This
mountain
is a
lion.
mountain lion skull. This is the top half of his skull and the bottom jaw. Teeth go, there's a little hinge back here, it goes together. Teeth go in there.
And then you just put that in the beetles and
This will go into the beetles, and on a skull this size, it'll probably only take them a day. And it will come out.
what kind of beetles are they?
Domestic beetles. And they exist all over the world. Many subspecies of domestic beetles. The subspecies I have are actually native to North America, and they just colonize well, and they reproduce fast, and they work well for this.
Okay. Are we gonna go do that next?
We can go see the beetle shed.
So he had me put on all this rain gear he had sitting around here because I guess it makes your clothes stink really bad. So
The beetle shed smells really bad, and it's not that the beetles stink, it's that I keep it 80 degrees in there, and flesh at 80 degrees does not smell good after a few hours.
So we'll see if I can do this without throwing up, all right?
Actually, let's take